Revelation 3:10. Set the context. It's a historical text. It's towards the end of the first century. For my preterist friends, we'll deal with the date of the writing of Revelation tomorrow in my lecture at this hour in room 360. Make sure you come. Hecklers always make it more exciting. But I, along with the majority of commentators throughout church history, would believe that the book of Revelation was written in the reign of Domitian towards the end of the first century. So we'll at least assume it for this. And John is on the Isle of Patmos. He's had the glorious vision of Christ in chapter 1. He's writing to the 7 churches of Asia. He's writing here to Philadelphia, the church that wasn't very prominent. It wasn't very sophisticated. It didn't have a lot of money, but it was faithful. And God blessed their little faith with the power to open doors that no one could close and to close doors that no one could open. And in the midst of that, he says, because you've kept the word of my perseverance, I also will keep you from the hour of testing, that is, which is about to come upon the whole world to test those who dwell upon the earth. Whatever he's talking about is global, not local. It's no more local than the Genesis flood was local. It is a global event, or language means absolutely nothing, and you and I would be totally confused as to what anything in the Bible meant. And there's a cause and effect. Because of their obedience, there would be a blessing from Christ that I also will keep you from the hour of testing. And we might ask the question, what is that hour of testing? Well, there's a lot of hours of testing in the Scripture, historically. But there is one ultimate, well-known hour of testing, and it's Daniel's 70th week, looking forward. And given the fact that we're in the book of Revelation, and we are looking forward in time, regardless of your eschatological position, we would assume contextually it's not looking back to something that happened in the past, because Jesus is talking about it as something that's going to happen in the future. And we would believe it's going to happen globally, whatever and whenever it is. Now, let's deal with the language in that particular text. I believe Revelation 3:10 does teach that the church will be removed prior to the tribulation. And it all begins with the little phrase, I will keep you. I will keep you from. The preposition that's used there, I can remember Robert Gundry going into all kinds of detail on this, and me thinking, wow, this is really wonderful. I finally met a scholar who's dealing with the Greek text and being sane about it. And it wasn't until about the 4th reading that I concluded that while what he said for the most part was on target, all of the evidence that argued against him he didn't put in the chapter. And you got to deal with all the evidence, whether it agrees with your position or it doesn't agree with your position, to try to come to a biblical position. And the Greek preposition ek can mean several things. It can mean, in the right context, emergence from something you're already in. You could ek the Shepherds Conference. You're already here, and for some reason you had to leave. Maybe there was an emergency in your church or whatever. It can also mean a continued state outside of something I've never, ever entered into. Can mean either one. And so we got to ask the question, which did Jesus have in mind in Revelation chapter 3 and verse 10? So we add the verb, tereo. It's tereoek is the little phrase, keep you from the hour of testing. Now there are several other prepositions that Jesus could have used. He could have used the preposition in. He could have used the preposition eis. He chose the preposition ek. And I've listed the little phrase tereo in and where it's used, which implies previous and continued existence within. And if Jesus was teaching a post-trib rapture, or this promise had something to do with the end of Daniel's 70th week, that would have been the far more appropriate phrase to have used with the preposition in and not ek. So much so, I think we could say that if a post-trib rapture was intended with the saints guaranteed immunity through to the end, then he would have either used in, ace, or dia in Revelation 3:10. And the question we've got to ask is, why did he use ek? Well, letter D, consistent with the previous observation, tereo ek could mean to keep within, but if it did, in its only other New Testament use, and this is where we all wished we had more evidence, but there is one other use. It's in John 17:15. And if Jesus, who's writing here, speaking in John 17, had meant in John 17 to keep within, it would have contradicted what later was taught in 1 John 5:19, if in fact they were implying previous existence within. However, if it was talking about something that they had not yet entered into in both cases, which the preposition allows for, and which would be expected since in, ace, or dia wasn't used, we would begin to conclude, subject to further testing, that what John is talking about in terms of blessing the church for its obedience is, I'm not going to allow you to enter into that hour of testing, rather than what post-trib would demand, or what a mid-trib would demand, is that somehow I'm going to remove you from something you're already in. And so goes the thinking with regard to tereo ek in Revelation chapter 3 and verse 10. It would, by any stretch of the imagination, by any honest dealing with the Greek language, other text, it would appear that what he's promising him is, I will keep you from entering in to this hour of testing, which must mean some well-known hour of testing, because it is a global hour of testing, which is later described in Revelation 6-18, that he's going to keep them from entering into. And we ask the question, how would he do that? And the answer is a pre-tribulation rapture. And what he's saying in part that was true of the church at Philadelphia would be true of all believers throughout time up to the rapture, who kept the word of his perseverance. And therefore, for those 7 reasons, and I'll spark a lot of discussion at lunchtime, I know, if you put them all together and you honestly take whatever paradigm you're embracing and ask, does that evidence really support on all fronts creating the least problems and clarifying the majority of the issues? And at least for me, and all I'll have to do is give an account for what I believe. You're going to have to give an account for what you believe. But we've certainly looked at the data, and the majority of the facts, a pre-tribulation rapture seems to do it. One other thought, we'll close in a word of prayer and join the brethren that are already so hungry they've got to leave before I'm done. No problem, guys. Don't take it personally.